Educator Shiloh Webb here. I'm an education consultant with Inner Matter, and I'm here to provide week 7 of our mindfulness lesson. I hope that you're here with me. If you are here watching, please let me know, say hi in the chat so that I can see you. Otherwise, if you're catching the replay, always indicate that you're catching the replay. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Give me 1 second. Okay, so for this week's mindfulness lesson, it's about living with intention. This past week, I had the luxury of being able to go on a wellness retreat. It was actually a fitness retreat. And in that week, what I got to do was I was given a schedule and I was to follow it. And for the first few hours, every morning, we went on a hike and we went hiking through mountains, and that is not something that I can regularly do in the area that I live in. And so it was really an exercise to push me beyond my limits. And so what I realized in the hiking and the experience and just being with a group of people was the importance of our ability to listen to our bodies and for that mind-body connection, which is something that a mindfulness practice has given me. And I'm so grateful for that practice. So what I noticed as we were out hiking, as I listened to my body and we were increasing, in the climb and the elevation, my breath would become shorter. Sometimes even more labored. Again, I'm not used to climbing mountains or hiking at that level, at that pace, and just even lunging forward like that on a regular basis. And the importance of just pausing and slowing down when I felt like my breath was getting labored. I noticed that when I was able to do that, I was able to take that rest and just take it long enough so that I had the energy to continue the climb to get to the top. I was one that in the group, I wanted to get to the highest points that I could and just push myself beyond those limits. And so I started with that. At every pause, I had that intention to finish or to get to the next level. Now, what I also noticed is that the people that weren't pausing, what was happening is they were actually getting winded to a point where they had to completely stop. At times they had to fold forward so that they could catch their breath, or they had to completely sit down. And so I think that the life lesson that I take away from this experience and noticing is that when we go slow and we do it with intention and we're just taking our time and edging forward as much as possible and doing it in a way that I'm listening and tuning into my system and following and responding to that, I was able to get to the top. And I was actually able to get to the top as one of the first people to get to the top of the climb. I also noticed that there's less error when I took my time and just really slowed down and tuned into my body and paused when I need to. And so that's what I invite you to do. I want you to think about life, and for this mindfulness lesson, we want to think about what are we doing on a day-to-day basis and what intention is that with? For instance, another thing that I noticed or experienced on this trip is I showed up without hairspray. And I think I've been using hairspray since the big hair days of the 80s, when we would rat it and style it really nice and high. And the gift shop at the resort that I was staying at did not have hairspray, and I didn't have a car to just run out to the store. Otherwise, I probably would have just gone to the store quick to get hairspray. So I thought, well, I'll just go without and see what happens. And what I found was I never needed hairspray. Now, I've been using hairspray since, like I said, the 80s, for sure. So probably since maybe, I don't know, for the past 30 years. And it took me until now to realize I don't need hairspray. I don't need it every day. I went an entire week without it. So not only is that going to be beneficial for my hair, it's going to save me about 20, 25 bucks a can. And so it just makes me think of like how much more in my life am I doing that I don't need to be doing. For instance, using hairspray every day, I've learned that I definitely don't need to do that. And then another experience that I recently had was rinsing out the peanut butter jar. So I don't know if you've ever rinsed out a peanut butter jar, but it is a lot of work to clean out a jar of peanut butter. You rinse it out many times with hot water, scrub it. Sometimes your scrub brush, your washcloth gets a little gooey and it's disgusting. And this last time, I know it's a job that I just don't like to do and I don't want to throw it in the recycling bin dirty. When recycling started about 20 years ago in my area, we had to clean out all the containers. And when we didn't, the city would actually tag the door and let us know that we didn't clean out our recycling containers and that if we continued, we'd either be fined by the city or we would no longer get recycling. Well, I care about Earth. And so all these years I've been cleaning out the peanut butter jar. I timed it this time. It takes me 9 minutes to clean out a jar of peanut butter. So it really got me curious, like, why am I doing this? Do I even need to do it? And are there more efficient ways to clean these jars out? I posted a little post on Facebook, asked my friends, and I learned all sorts of cool ideas, such as some people just rinse it with hot water and leave it soak all night. Then when they wake up in the morning, they can rinse it out really quick and it's ready to be clean. You know, it's pretty clean and they throw it in the recycling bin. The other ideas that I got was to give it to the dog. I have a dog and a dog will clean out a peanut butter jar beautifully. And I know mine would, certainly scraping it out with a spatula. Someone also mentioned that you no longer need to clean out a recycling container. And so I called my local recycling center and guess what? It's no longer required. So I've spent the last 20 years doing this task that takes me 9 minutes from what I had assessed this last time I cleaned it, when I haven't even needed to do that all this time. So again, was I intentional with that? No, I just went into autopilot mode and just did what I've always done, and that pattern that has been ingrained in me, rather than thinking about what am I doing, why am I doing it, and is this really, really necessary? So what I want you to do is I want you to think of your day-to-day tasks for this mindfulness lesson for tonight. I want you to really think about, what do you do on a regular basis? So it might be, you can even think of things that are probably stressing you out. I think that's a really good place to start. What are those things that you have to do or you feel like you have to do, or the things that you do on a day-to-day basis that stress you out? One thing that comes to mind for me is really working with my kids to get their homework done. There are times where that just completely stresses me out. So when I think about that, do I need to work with my kids to get their homework done? Yes, that's not an option. But how I go about getting their homework done is a choice of mine, right? And I can be intentional about it. I can be intentional in the way that when I work with my kids, and if I go at them authoritarian style, just parent mode or like my teacher hat on and say they need to get this done, and I wouldn't do that in the classroom. I would definitely present it in the classroom. I present it a lot more fun, as activity-like and discovery learning, or there's a time where it's kind of, this is the expectation and the clear expectation to get something done. But that doesn't work with my own kids. And so my intentional practice is, what does work with them? It works by having fun and showing up and pulling in the manipulatives and letting them discover and letting them do one little thing at a time versus sitting down and expecting them to get it all done start from finish. They've just spent a whole day at school learning and using their minds. The last thing they want to do sometimes is come home and do that right away. So that's another example of, when we think about our day-to-day activities, how intentional are we with them, and are we really reflecting on that? Is this something like that I have to do? Is there a more efficient or better way, healthier way that I could do this? Or is it something that I could get rid of altogether or not even include in my life? So again, it's that intentional way of living. So go ahead and gently close your eyes with me, and we're just going to visualize something that brings you stress, or maybe agitates you when something comes up. It could even be like an interaction with a significant other, or maybe your own children kind of push your buttons. But I want you to just reflect on something that brings you a little bit stress. In this activity, connecting with your breath, feeling the belly rise and fall with each inhale and exhale. So bring to mind a daily activity that heightens your stress levels a little bit. Maybe it's getting your kids and yourself out the door in the morning. Maybe it's getting to work on time. Maybe a certain period of your day. I want you to visualize what happens during that time. See the situation as you're an outside observer looking at it. Hear the interactions if it's with other people. If it's just with yourself, let's say it's getting to work on time, listen to that inner voice that you often hear during this stressful activity. Feel how your body feels. Maybe your heart races. Your breath becomes shortened from the stress or the tension. Your muscles might tense up. Maybe you just feel overall anxiousness. Connecting with your body as you visualize this typical stressful experience that you have. Noticing how your body is responding. You might notice that your current physiology has been stressed out or feeling a little stressed right now, just thinking of the situation. Now I want you to think, in an ideal world, how would that situation play out in a peaceful, calming, more present way? I want you to see what it would look like in an ideal or perfect world, perfect scenario. Maybe you're seeing this situation play out in harmony, positivity radiating, or just even a sense of neutrality. I want you to hear how this situation plays out. Again, if this situation doesn't involve others, I want you to hear positive self-talk. In a perfect world, hear how this would sound, how all of this would play out. Now I want you to feel what it would be like if it always happened perfectly as you imagine. You might feel a sense of calmness, excitement, peace, perhaps even joy. When you're ready, I want you to connect back to your breath. Feeling the rise and fall with every inhale and exhale. And when you're ready, I want you to slowly open your eyes and take your time. Okay, so just as a reminder, the reason why we slowly open our eyes is so that we don't shock our system when we open them quickly, especially if you are in a bright light. I'm in my office and have the bright lights on tonight for the sake of this video, but if you're in a classroom where a lot of fluorescent lights are used, we wouldn't want to have you or your students open your eyes suddenly, because it can, I should say, it won't always, but it can really agitate your nervous system when you go from that darkness to light. So we want to slowly come out of that, because that agitation can carry with you throughout the rest of the day. In this activity, you may have noticed that when I had you visualize that situation that brings you stress, hopefully you were feeling the physiological changes within your system. So whether it's your heart race, your muscles tense, and if you experience that, please type yes in the chat and let me know that you definitely experienced that when I had you visualize that stressful situation. Did you notice some agitation rise in your body? It's pretty common, and the reason being is that our brain doesn't know the difference between the reality and fake. If we visualize it, our body responds as if it's really happening. Now when we respond, or now when I had you visualize the positive outcome of that situation, I'm hoping that you started to feel a sense of calm and just inner presence and inner awareness within your system. and maybe even some positivity. Molly said yes, she did. So that is the importance when we are intentional about how we show up and connecting with our system. When we're connecting with our system is going to give us that inner wisdom that we need in order to guide us through a situation. It's going to tell us whether or not it's right or wrong. And it will help us guide us to know whether or not we need to make changes. And so when we feel that inner agitation, that's a really good sign that we need to make changes, whether it's a change that we need within us, maybe it's an environmental change, but listen to that. Just as I had to on my hike up the mountains this past week, I would slow down as soon as I started feeling short of breath. I would pause when I needed to. And I may just even slow down on my pace and just take those baby steps in order to just keep moving forward and get to the top. There were other times where I completely stopped. Those that weren't as in tune, like I had said, they had to fold over to catch their breath because they started feeling faint. Some of them had to even stop completely and couldn't continue on up to the top. And so when we are pausing and we are being intentional about what we're doing, how we're using our time, we're able to get that task done typically. And we're able to get that done with a lot more positivity, just as I had you do in the visualization process. So that is our lesson for tonight. It is really mindfulness and living with intention. Start thinking about what you're doing, and because we're creatures of habits, so we've all been patterned some way, somehow, and most of what we do is just operating off of a patterning that we have that's been ingrained here, but it isn't necessarily always serving us well. So listen to your body. And when your body tells you that, oh, this isn't right for you, I want you to get curious about, why isn't this right for me? Is this something that I need to be doing? And is this something that I really need? And then go from there to improve the situation. All right, I want to say thank you so much for joining me for this live mindfulness session. Again, if you are here watching me with me, say hi or let me know that you're catching the replay. Any comments or questions, Ryan, Lockie, and I will always come back and answer these comments. We are continuing on. I think we have 2 more weeks of our live mindfulness series for educators here in the social emotional learning group for educators. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope you all have a good evening and a good week. We'll see you soon.